at a huge cost. I will be honest, you hit on one of the biggest problems is in construction, we jump to shovels in the ground. We jump to getting it done, right? It's because that's what people want. And your guy is right. All of our construction people, to the point where I got here, you're always playing defense. And there is an opportunity to play offense. And I'll take a sports analogy because I think it usually works. And let's talk about soccer for a minute, right?
Hi everybody, Gavin Coyle, I'm the Gaffer, is back again with a great guest. Really looking forward to this one. He's all the way from Colorado in the United States. His name is Jeff Sample and he's a podcast host himself. Very successful podcast, I might add, ConTech Crew, which we'll talk about. Seem to be getting a few podcast producers on the show, which is good because, you know, we're all in the same community and we all have things to share and we all want to do the right thing for construction, which is the reason we're all here. But this guy is special because he's got some really good information in the background. He is a technologist guru and he can talk us through that career and how that shaped his, direction within the construction industry and how he's helping construction owners and leaders. And we want to talk today in particular about leadership and how we need their leaders to jump on board with innovation and technology, and what does that look like and how does that come together? If you're too overwhelmed by the whole conversation, hopefully Jeff can sort of distill in a small version of what you need to do to get started and what that looks like for your company going forward. Jeff Sample, happy to have you on. I'm the Gaffer. Welcome to the show.
Gavin, thanks for having me on. I fully agree with you. Us podcasters have to stick together. Rising tide lifts all ships. So I'm excited. I'm always excited too for our audiences to sort of hear something new and hear something different.
Yeah.
So it's great to sit down and have a conversation. But you're right. Before anybody turns this one off, it's not about innovation and technology, and I'm not here to beat it down your throat. I actually have a pretty unique view on it, I think, and I'm excited to talk about it with you and maybe make it digestible for people in leadership.
I think that's a fair comment because I think, people do turn off and go, oh, here we go again. They're shoving down this change management, which is coming down from the top 5 sort of guru companies. Let's have a change management or a transformational, technology change within the business. And that's really it's just jargon. Tell the listeners about your background, Jeff. Tell us where, your strengths started and where they are today.
So by trade, I'm an IT architect. So I build large IT infrastructure. I started off just building off little PCs and working in companies and worked my way up in a corporation to, running a few departments and designing larger implementations and really fell in love with it. And the power of connecting business to, what our customers wanted or what our employees wanted. And that grew for a while and I consulted for a while. And then as anybody has happened, they sort of hit a moment of, I'm burning out here. What am I going to do? And we had a software arm on the consulting arm I worked for. And they said, you should come over here and learn what's going on with this cloud and technology and software development. And quite frankly, it was one of the coolest opportunities I ever got because, they always say, you want to understand somebody, walk a mile in their shoes. You want to understand technology and software, then go learn how to build it, learn how to design it. So I spent some time doing that, really fell in love with the processes and the iteration and what we were doing. But as happens in software, about 10 years ago, I found myself moving on from that company because they were gone. And a masonry contractor here in Colorado, Vail, Colorado, found me and offered me an opportunity to come over and work with them as an IT director. And honestly, I had no idea about construction. I really didn't. I didn't know much about it. I didn't have an appreciation for it. But I went over, good job, good people, good leadership. Let's see what's going on. I would love to tell you, Gavin, that it was an overnight that I fell in love with them. It took about a year. I was confused. I was a little troubled. But I went to an event, and at AGC here, the American General Contractors Association in America, they have an IT conference. It's now the AGC IT conference, Innovation and Technology. But I all of a sudden saw all these people that were getting involved in helping get the things around us built and understanding the work and the problems with the technology. So it kind of refreshed me, and I got to go back to the organization and realize I needed to get out in the field, realized, the value and the extra work we were putting on people. So I fell in love with not just the masons, but I got to meet, people who build scaffolding out of their brain. And to me, that was it was unbelievable. And then, you had the HVAC and the electrical and the plumbers and just all the work that goes on in concert to build something, and understanding that this is critical infrastructure. So that's when I really connected and learned how little time those people were being allowed to spend on their tools, to spend doing what they love to do, right? They're craftspeople. They love to build things. At the end of the day, they don't care about a daily report and sending you the log, except for the fact that they, usually that has your time card on it and everybody needs to get paid. It's not why we go to work, but it's what fuels us to come back every day. And I realized there was this huge opportunity for this underserved group that also, by the way, was looked down upon. I came from the world, the ski resort business, most of technology and technologists, we already have the wiring. We already have the computer. Well, you don't have that data center. You don't have that connectivity. If someone in the trades, someone in construction didn't get it and build it. And in the ski resort business, we had remote locations. So last mile technology was something I understood, and it made a great connection because we weren't bringing them internet, but we wanted them to be technology. So, that's where I got my start. That's me. I also was on I was a guest on the podcast that I now host and own. Because I at that AGCIT event, I walked up to three of the people who were speaking and said, "You guys are on to something. We need to talk." And much like you reaching out and just saying, "Hey, you want to get on the microphone and talk?" They asked if I wanted to get on the microphone and talk. And that's what we did.
Brilliant. So how did you actually end up going? Did you buy that podcast?
No, we transitioned it. So the original founder, James Benham, and I are really close friends to this day.
Yeah.
He exited. He was a software consulting. He owns a company called JB Knowledge. They still exist. He invented something called SmartBid. They exited from SmartBid, and his passions took him in a different direction. And so we naturally talked about, do we end it or do we continue it? And I said, I have a passion for it. Let's keep it going. So, so I took it over.
So just to give the listeners sort of viewers, obviously we're on YouTube, but what is your main goal with the podcast? What is your mission?
So it's evolved over time. That it's evolved with the industry. So in the beginning, it was really identifying the technology and being a resource for people to understand what was coming at them. Robotics was data analytics, project management software, drawing software, all of that was brand new back in those days. And, virtual reality had just hit the scene and augmented reality was hitting the scene. And there was nobody out there just like breaking it down and maybe looking at the places that it could have an impact. But over time, it's evolved. Those things have caught up and there's a better understanding of what's out there. So now it's really shifted to the people making the changes and how they're applying them and what it looks like in the real world.
100%.
So that's what we do now.
Brilliant. And so you also are the founder of Ironman of IT. I think you're doing well to get that name, by the way.
So this is awesome because it comes from that first show. That first show, that random meeting with a guy named Rob McKinney. He was the guy on the show. It was the ConTech trio when I met them. They brought me into the fold to make it the ConTech Crew. So at the end of every show, kind of like yours, they ask, hey, tell our audience something they wouldn't know about you.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't widely known at the time. It is now that I've now completed 5 full Ironman races in my time. So
well done.
So at the end, I say, hey, I race Ironman. And at the time I was actively training and racing. And Rob blurted out, oh, so you're the Iron Man of IT.
Brilliant.
And I bought the domain name that night. And when I had to build an LLC, I was like, there's no two ways about it. This is where I'm going.
Like, yeah, it's that's a very cool name. Like, a very cool name. And I suppose nobody has a proprietary over Ironman.
Nope. No. Well, no. I mean, it's funny because thanks to the Marvel universe and the Iron Man racing universe, it's kind of left alone. Yeah. So, I'm careful with it. And it's funny because I always say on stage, I wish it was the Tony Stark, but it's actually the race. So I'm a glutton for punishment, not a genius.
Well, I'm going to pull you up on one thing, if you don't mind me saying so.
Yeah.
An Ironman is a long, hard endurance race that really stretches your mind and your body to the limit. That resonates with me because any developers that I've worked with in the past are they're torture to work with. If you don't mind me saying so. There's never an end. You nearly finished that piece of software. Yeah, it's just probably going to take another couple of weeks. We're doing a sprint on Friday and, we should have a new version on Monday. And it's just never ending. So if you don't mind, I had to put that in there.
You know what? I don't mind. And actually, I think what was cool is that is the case. Like, I actually always tell my audiences, there's one thing, and I speak out in the world and talk to a lot of leaders, and, a lot of them come up to me and go, okay, how am I going to get done with this? Yeah. And I'm like, first and foremost, just like software developers, innovation and change never ends. It's the only constant is that we're going to continue to change. And, technology from a technology space, there is a duality. Today is the fastest technology has ever changed in history.
Okay.
And it will also never be this slow again starting tomorrow. It speeding up, Moore's law, it speeds up every day.
Yeah.
And so change, but that's where the endurance comes in. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Unfortunately, this marathon never ends. And like a good race, like a good project, like a good construction project or a good software project, you come out with a plan. And when things go wrong, you change, adapt, and overcome. Yeah. And in racing, that's what we did. I went out with great plans, and then I always got hit in the face with something. My water bottle fell off my bike. My protein stuff is got wet and I can't eat it.
Yeah.
Whatever. Adapt. So it's really taught me how to be resilient. And I think resiliency is what we need in the construction industry.
100%. I have a good few friends that are in the Ironman world, and I don't join them. I join them training. I do training with them, but I don't join the events. But I have major admiration for them, and I can see why there's a hook for them. It's probably another podcast in terms of motivating and healthy. It doesn't have to be an Ironman. It could be anything. It could be just a park run at a weekend or something like that. But it's good for the mind.
I agree. And getting out in nature and walking anywhere. I mean, it's funny because, I'm a semi-retired Ironman. I don't have a plan to do one for a while. And, but I enjoy walking. Something to your point, Gavin, because a lot of people say, well, I've got things to do. I've got big problems, Gavin. I don't have time for your foolish games. But I'm a huge fan of a guy named Duncan Wardle, and a few friends and I have really been investigating the burnout and the mental health issues that we have in this industry. And, and the lack of, the light bulb moments of innovation. And what we've learned is putting it all together is there's not enough play. We don't give ourselves enough
Yeah.
time. If your listeners, if you're driving your car, don't do this, but if you're listening or watching on YouTube, close your eyes for a minute and think about where you come up with your best ideas. I'm going to say it's walking. Showering is the one we hear the most.
Yeah.
For me, it's hiking or on my bike. I guarantee you none of you said at work. And Duncan is who I took that from, and he's been doing it hundreds of times, and nobody says work.
Yeah.
So you got to allow that. But also, one of the biggest ways to prevent burnout is to incorporate versions of play into your world. And that can be tinkering with technology toys, but it can also be tinkering with new processes or your electrical team working on fabrication or coming up with ideas, or your design and detailers, taking a day or two to think about something new and come up with crazy ideas and laugh.
Yeah.
We're never going to create work-life balance, but we can certainly insert a lot of play and fun into what we do because it drives true great innovation and change.
Yeah, I think the problem that I see talking to construction owners as well is, and I think your man Goggins mentions it as well, your brain is just packed. And it's like, you're walking into a garage and it's just packed with loads of toys, loads of like the boat, the bikes or whatever else. And you need to just clear all of that, get that clutter out of there in order to be able to put things into the garage properly. And I know it's a simple analogy, but when you go on a hard run or a cycle or whatever it is, your mind is forced to switch into a different direction, I feel. And that direction switches you off from all of this chaos and all of this congestion. And now you've got, freed up space, and you've had to concentrate on your heartbeat, and you've had to concentrate on your stride or whatever it is. And next thing, all of a sudden, you're not thinking about work. And that is a major thing that, like, from a health perspective, I don't know what the science is behind it, but even just to have that 30, 40 minutes to zone out. And by default, you've now got a cleared brain set to take on the day, if you like, or to take on the afternoon or whatever it is that you do. And I think as I said, I think it's a podcast in itself on that.
It is, because what you're talking about is, so I'm a big organizational psychology. I have my psychology minor. I love the way people's brains work. I always say this, I'm not that great at technology. I actually just really understand humans and human nature.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is you're only using 18% of your brain when you're operating day to day. Why? Because you have to shut things down, especially in construction, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk. There is a lot of moving parts and pieces. Like you said, that garage in most people's world is static. In our construction world, the skid steer's moving and the scaffolding's got to go, and
it's very dynamic.
Lay down pile is different, and the cranes are picking at a certain rate. And you're, as an owner of any of those, or as a leader in any of those, even a project manager, you have to make decisions, right? And they have to be calculated, and they require experience. And so I'm not saying any of that's not important, because it's super important. But that's 18% of your brain. When you hit that ride and you hit that heart rate, your unconscious mind starts to process all of those things.
Yeah.
And so now you're using 80 to 90% of your brain unknowingly and unconsciously, and those problems are bubbling through, and all of a sudden you're unlocked. And it's funny, I do this at conferences a lot. Like, you're getting preached at on stage a lot. I have tried to
You don't say.
move from preaching to talking, and then actually introducing these games into it. So, you have somebody who comes up who talks about documents and contract management and risk management in the morning, and it's serious. And they're like, well, then why would you want to get up and talk about play? Your technology, it's just as serious. I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But your brains need 30, 40 minutes of fun time and interesting time to process what you just heard. And when you come back and have a panel later and they want you to ask questions, you're going to ask the best questions.
Yeah.
Because your brain just had some time to work on it. So
yeah,
these are tricks and tools to helping leaders create that space. and opportunity.
Oh, I'm 100% with you. 100% with you on that. I have an interesting discussion on that. Actually, my main business, we supplied a lot of health and safety professionals to a very big, large corporate company, and one of my guys rang me within the first couple of weeks and said, "Gavin, this is it's kind of strange coming working with this client." And I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, I was in a meeting today and we were talking about a piece of rope, and the client had about 5 people on their side and I was on your side, on the coil side, if you like. And we talked about the size of the rope. We talked about the color of the rope. We talked whether the rope had CE standards. We talked about the thread in the rope. We talked about the loop at the end of the rope." He said, "We were 2 to 3 hours still talking about this rope in this meeting." And he said, "I was looking around myself and I said, what have I let myself in for?" You know, because he came from a more construction. Now, this is still going to be in construction, but it was more in a corporate institutional environment that is more processed than the ordinary construction company. And he came from the construction sites into this environment. And he said, "You know what?" He said, "I actually came back to the realization that I was the fool. I was looking at them thinking, what were they at? What are they going on about? But I've now realized, because I have been reactive all of my life and I've been trained to be reactive on a construction job. Somebody comes in, slams the door. Oh shit, we need to get out to whatever, and it needs to be done now, and it has to be done by Friday or whatever it is." And he says constantly, he says, he says, "That's all I was doing, was I was just reacting to situations rather than having, the time to put into focus how to do something properly." Now, that might be in an extreme case study that I've just given you. But if you take that, there is a learning in that, in terms of, yes, it needs to be done at a certain time, but at what cost?
At a huge cost. I will be honest, you hit on one of the biggest problems is in construction. We jump to shovels in the ground. We jump to getting it done, right? It's because that's what people want. And your guy is right. All of our construction people, to the point where I got here, you're always playing defense, and there is an opportunity to play offense. And I'll take a sports analogy because I think it usually works. And let's talk about soccer for a minute, right? The players on the field react to what happened, right? But ultimately, you have, as coaches and as a staff and a training staff, you've looked at the other team. You've planned your offensive plays. You've planned your defensive strategy. You have a strategy. You've taken time. You've researched those players, your opponents. In our world, it's not opponents that are people, it's materials, it's design, it's the earthwork.
Yeah.
If we take time to plan and then we execute on that plan and play offense and get ahead of it, it's not going to go to plan, right? Not every play is like, look, I passed it here, I passed it there, and you scored because the goalie was over here.
Yeah.
But you did it 3 or 4 times and all of a sudden the goalie's out of position and you score, or they get their big move and lo and behold, you saw it coming and you either catch them off sides or, you move so they can't score.
Yeah.
But it's planning, and we do not spend time planning. And the crazy thing is, the more time you spend in planning, the less time you will spend executing. The benefits are so solid and proven. I know you like books, How Big Things Get Done. If you haven't read the book, read the book. You'll understand why I'm so absolutely just stuck on this issue of giving ourselves time to plan, and be prepared and talk.
Yeah. And be present.
And be present in the moment. You are absolutely. And nowhere in there did you hear me say that it's not about collaboration and it's not about talking to the other teams. It's actually about bringing and getting as many ideas in. They're not always going to be right.
Yeah.
But you never know the one that's going to be the game changer, the person that's going to see the thing. And we have a different environment, right? You heard me say tinkering and a couple of other things. Like, We like in the software business to say fail fast. I always temper that with construction, right? We cannot fail on a job site. I cannot fail in safety. I cannot fail in risk, right?
No.
But if I offer myself an opportunity to fail in planning and to fail in, hey, can I mock this up? Can I use a new tool to do this virtually and see if it'll work? If I can fail virtual and succeed physical, I've gotten better.
Yeah. It's just, but I think there's a culture of get it done, get it up and running. And then there's a culture of, okay, if we award this contract to you from a client perspective, how quick can you get on this job and get moving? Because now they want the shiny car, or they want the shiny piece of golden nugget that, you're going to provide. So the client have a bit of ownership on this conversation, I believe, that, they're setting the agenda by pushing the contractor to get on the job and get going.
You're 100% right. And so that was another part of my journey was, leaving a masonry contractor and heading out into the big world and thinking I knew what I was doing. And I knew that this technology and some innovation was going to change the world. Mm-hmm. I was wrong, dead wrong, and happy to be wrong, because I learned the complexity. I got to spend some time with my last company on the software side, working with general contractors, but mainly learning what owners and engineers and architects need in a project and need to understand. And I learned a lot of those pressures that you're seeing from an owner, a drug manufacturer that as soon as they get their patent only has 5 years until somebody else can make it for cheaper. You have a data center that, needs to be up and running to get money. You have, or build more capacity. You have water treatment plants, et cetera, right? So they have real pressure, and engineers sit on real pressure because if they make a mistake, physical things happen, right? So I started to digest the complexity that actually exists and the number of different perspectives. And I think that's a key component to understanding, like you said, like the owners want you to get the shovel in the ground. That is true. So you have to understand their perspective, because their perspective is they're losing money, they're wasting time. But that's a perception. If you can perceive that and you can communicate to them that, listen, we understand you, but if we false start, it's going to cost you money. Yeah. If rework is one of the biggest costs of money. So if I'm organizing my structural and I'm not working with my MEPs and my HVACs and I'm not working with that, and I start to build things and I come on site to slide it in and I've closed it off, I'm done. I'm reworking. So that's costing you extra money. So the idea is to understand the perspective of your owner and help them with their perception. Show them that you're virtually working through them with them. Ask them difficult questions about the outcomes and the needs. And so you can balance that when you're working with your trades.
Yeah.
And as trades, understand that you have these owners pressuring your GCs. And as material suppliers, you have schedule and lay down and sequencing for your trades. So there's this complex group.
Yeah.
Having a perception and a perspective around each group and what drives them is how you help them change, right? I'd love to preach. As you can tell, I love the microphone. I love to preach. I love to talk. I love to get on my soapbox. But I cannot preach somebody into changing. I have to give them an opportunity and an understanding to make that change, to be willing to lean in and rethink their own ideas.
Yeah.
And that's where true change happens and true innovation happens.
Because you have time, and time is everything. Time is everything. Yeah. Talk to me.
It's the only thing that's more costly than money this time.
Well, you're never getting it back. Tell me, unpack then the whole, I'm a big fan of lean. I don't know if you listen to some of the episodes, but I love lean. I don't love lean to the detriment of the project or to people, obviously, or to safety or whatever. But I am a big fan on efficiency. So, I've got a roofing company. Let's say it's called Gavin the Gaffer Roofing, and I can't embrace this whole technology thing. I need to talk to this Jeff Sample guy, and I need to get this guy in to talk to me about how to put together efficient models within my business. What's the first thing you do when you walk into that business, and what are you looking for?
Hi guys, as you're enjoying this podcast, I just wanted to take a few seconds to let you know about my company, Coyle Group. We're not just another safety recruitment agency. We're your partners in building a safer future. With over 25 years of experience and more than 1 million hours of safety work completed, our mission is clear. Provide top-tier health and safety contractors tailored to the unique needs of your project. We also carry out on-site construction audits. From wind energy to power stations, utilities and engineering projects, our global reach and specialised expertise ensures your operations are not just compliant, but exemplary. For more information on how ensuring safety and sustainability of your products using our team of HSE contractors, visit coyle-group.com or click on the show notes or video description now. I've also put a booking link into the description for you to click and have a one-to-one conversation with me. Now, back to the podcast. Enjoy and see you soon.
I'm looking for culture. Just the fact that you're willing to bring me in shows that you have a willingness and an appetite for change. So I'm a huge lean fan. I call myself lean curious because I don't come from a lean background. I actually come from an agile software background, which the two are very similar.
Yeah.
And we learn a lot from each other. And I think lean at its core is about people and process, and then applying change to it. I say people, process, technology, but change is there. Innovation is the opportunity. And I would, Gavin, if it was your roofing company, the first thing I would do is tell you that, how have the materials that you use changed? How has the installation methodology changed? How has the tools that you use changed in the history of your business?
Interesting.
And you'd probably answer me, oh yeah, we use this, we use this, we use this. Our definition of innovation and technology is broken. And that is why the construction industry gets beat over the head as being so far behind, because we define innovation by bits and bytes. It's not bits and bytes and ones and zeros. We build the most advanced, we're building nuclear reactors, we're building tunnels, we're building insane stadiums, right? Like masterpieces of the world that created an experience far beyond you would have thought of 50 years ago. You can't tell me that you're not innovative. You are. You're just not applying that same willingness and thought to the technology and the bits and bytes themselves, right? So what you do to bring in a new tool is first you learn about that tool. Then you learn about how it might help doing what you're doing. And then you bring in some of your people and you try it out.
You see, I think there's a step back on. I think you might have missed a step for me on that, if you don't mind me saying so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm Irish, so I'm a bit blunt, a bit brutal. So, why do you want that tool in the first place? That's the question. That's what I've found as I've gone through construction. Why the hell this tool and not another tool? Or why can't the person do it themselves without this tool?
I love the whys. You're a true lean man, my friend. And you're absolutely right. What you just did to me is the core of innovation and design thinking, right? You look at and identify the problem, right? If you want to know in innovation and technology where to start, start with the problem.
Yeah. And
going out and
it might not be a problem. It might
not.
That's my point. And this is where, even on the safety side of things, I see a load of safety washing businesses that are paying stupid money, crazy money, when it's just a marketing effort. And you ask them, like, what is the output of that? What are you actually achieving from that exercise?
How are you measuring it, right? The whole thing around lean is to try things and then test and make sure it's improving. If it's not improving, I mean, we saw a ton of people take paper time cards to tablets, and all they did was quadruple the time it took to input time. Because look, I don't know a lot of construction people out there with real small, delicate hands that work on an iPad real well, right? So
you just see it now, yeah.
Yeah. So it there's not one size to fit them all. And there's a problem that keeps every owner up at night. And those are the places you should start. But then you got to go digging for those problems and then decide, is this an opportunity? Is it broken? And is there a way? First, is it my process? Right?
Yeah.
Lean starts with process. Yeah. And because if you have a crappy process, then you can efficiently suck.
Yeah.
Right. I can put technology on a real bad process and I can get you to that end goal of sucking real fast. Let's not do that. Let's fix the process. Let's fix the problem. Let's ask those 5 whys.
Yeah.
To get to some root cause anchors and reasons. And then let's find the rockets to get us there. Right. What can we do?
Or maybe you've looked at it and you said, I'm glad I've looked at it, but we don't need to take it any further. That's okay what we're doing. Leave it. It's fine. And that's fine too.
It is, as long as you're measuring it.
Yeah, but I just don't see people, in my experience, and I could be wrong, but maybe at tier 1s are more effective at this, but I don't see people building a risk register for their business that, is reviewed on a quarterly basis or an annual basis, where they sit down with their team or their executive team or your wife or your partner or whatever else, and you say, okay, risk register. Okay, what are we putting on number 1 risk? Number 1 risk is if he goes or she goes, we're in trouble. We need to fix that. So then you start building your case study around, well, what does that look like if we have to put a substitute person in there or have a channel that, the business doesn't destabilize and so on and so forth. You would not believe the amount of people that I speak to that don't have a live risk register, a business risk register for their business.
Not enough people understand it and not enough people focus on it. Now, what I will say is this is where sort of my background and trying to bring some new ideas in comes in, because a risk register is really around, understanding where your single points of failure are, maybe understanding those people, but also this is where bits and bytes come in really handy. If you're collecting data and if you're doing it in a structured way and you're making sure that it's coming from all portions of your organization, then there's an opportunity to start using that data to inform your decisions.
Brilliant.
Right?
Love it.
You will hear people say data-driven decision-making. That is a red flag. Stop. The data does not drive, right? Because the bits and the bytes don't understand the people. I don't know what Gavin wants to do with his roofing company, but I can give you data that you can look at and you can use what you want to do. I do this with self-driving cars. Everybody gets worried about self-driving cars. You know what self-driving cars are never going to do? Know where I want to go. I might, it might know when I get in, but that's because I use my little phone over here to tell it. It doesn't know what I want, what I need, the human piece of it. We're always going to drive it. We're always going to be in control of it. But the data and the tools can give us insights. But also, Gavin, the one thing I will challenge is we are leading towards a huge labor skill gap.
100%.
And I mean that not only in people, like the actual number of people, but the valuable experience in the minds of our superintendents, project managers,
we're losing
our field people. The one thing we can do, if we can do it in a way that's unintrusive, is we can capture that knowledge. We can capture that experience. We can, what we call, democratize it, get it inside of the code so that Gavin's roofing company has that person's warnings and heads ups and safety. It's the offense, right? It's telling you you're about to do X, Y, and Z at this height. Here's things that have happened to us in the past or problems that have occurred. Now I can get ahead of it, right? With the difference between a problem and a decision is when I tell you. It's a decision the earlier I tell you. It's a problem if I tell you too late. That's what we're focused on. That's why we want the industry to start to lean towards technology that can enhance and capture that information.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, in the end, you got to get paid, man. And capturing the work that's been done and the work that's in place and automating a lot of that is a powerful opportunity to leave people more time on the tools. Our tool time, from a lean perspective, our tool time is getting lower instead of more. And that's a tragedy, because not only are we losing people, we're losing our productivity because of all the other things that we feel like we have to do, that we can do with great technology applied to the process.
Yeah. Tell me this, Jeff. Buy off-the-shelf software or build software?
Yes, and. I will use a Duncan Wardle. Yes, and. Yes, buy technology off the shelf and use teams to integrate it and make it work better for you. The 80-20 rule exists. All software is only going to hopefully hit 80% of your problems, right? 20% it's not going to solve. You have to figure out a way to adapt it and make it work for you. That may be having programmers inside of your organization. It may be having what we call here in the States a construction technologist. I like to call them a business analyst because a construction technologist kind of pigeonholes them, and it makes us only look in construction. You can look outside to other industries. Business analysts are really good at looking at the software, analyzing the needs and requirements, and then analyzing its usage and looking for problems.
Yeah. And
going out and really working with it. So I think every company is going to have to balance that. Building your own, though, I will warn you, it's a lot bigger, a lot more expensive, and a lot more dedication than many give it credit for. And you can truly create, I had a guy on my show recently, Peyton Kringley, that talked about, well, I can keep the car running, but I'm going to keep the mechanic real busy. I might want to get a new car and have them put some better tires on it that work better for what I'm doing. And the car is going to be out there and working. So homemade software that's made poor and not scalable can just be more of a problem.
And a distraction, yeah, for the business.
Yes. And you only have so much political capital, so it can kill you there.
It can kill you. Yeah. When you mentioned teams earlier on, you're talking about the team software, not teams within groups of teams. Were you suggesting bring in the out of the box software and use team software, or what were you meaning by that?
No, out of the box software that you buy, and then have a team of people.
Okay,
whose
so put a task
role
together.
It is. Yeah, whose role it is to understand it. Something I teach about a lot right now, because I think it's an opportune moment in the industry, is you got a lot of leaders who listen to this show. I am not asking you as a technologist to understand technology completely, right? I'm asking you to be an expert on your business. I'm asking you to look for people like me in the world, and there's lots of us, that understand technology but speak business.
Yeah.
You can tell us your business problems. We can articulate. And if you're an IT geek out there and you speak bits and bytes, the first thing you need to do is learn how to speak business. Because the last thing I ever need is a CEO or a president or an owner turning to me and saying, well, I want to do this. And I go, well, let me show you how my backups work and all my replication and my No, they don't care. That's not important. Speak business. And leaders, I'm not asking you to understand it all. I'm asking you to bring on people who do, create a level of trust with them and iteration, and learn how to grow and solve business problems with it. And the geeks, I'm asking you to learn business and to enjoy the rest of what you do and continue to be tinkerers and solve problems. And that's why I say we need teams, right? We need people from the field that understand how it gets done. We need people in the office. A technology is not done till it's run its life cycle. So I use a time card all the time. A time card, everybody thinks, oh, great, I'll just capture the time. Well, depending on how you cost code, I might want to know cost code and percent complete. So I might want to put that into my project management system and my schedule and understand where I'm at. I also want that work to be put to my payroll for my employee. So to me, that time card's not done until they have their paycheck in their accounts, and I have a pay app out to whoever's going to pay me for the work. So there's far more involved in what we're doing. And I think that's too why technology in many respects gets a bad name, because we solve a little problem and we don't think strategically about how we can flow that information through and make everybody's life just a touch easier.
Yeah. And the other issue that I see is there's a saturation of software in the market, and it's very difficult, I believe, for owners and leaders to sort of figure out which is the right one for them. Then they make a move, which can be, $100,000 move in some cases, maybe more, but like generally speaking, you're in for $100,000 by the time you take labor into account and all the rest of the stuff that goes with it. You're in for $100,000 whether you like it or not. And that's we all have some level of ego, and when it's a mistake and you're the one that's signed off in the check, it's a very damaging mistake.
Yeah. People are out there listening to this privately, so they can have their own moment right now. But many of you are dragging around an idea or a technology that you thought was a good idea, you spent a lot of money on, and it never came to fruition. And it's like a boat anchor, but you keep throwing good money at bad because you don't want to cut it loose.
Yeah.
It's time to cut it loose.
Get out
but
there.
what's great,
now.
Yeah. Get out of there now. But this is where, and you'll love this, Gavin, I think, as a lean person, because this is what I teach when I come to a contractor. And it's great because I teach it to software companies now that this should be the process. You start with the problem and the people. Then you map it out and understand your requirements. You really, really dig in. You create a system of identifying what you need in technology, in a tool. And so you come to the table and say, these are the things I need. See, far too much what happens is you got a problem, you got a solution looking for a problem. So if I sit down across from you, Gavin, and you don't know what you need, well, I love my tool and it does awesome things and it makes people's lives really great. But if you don't have the problem I'm solving, you're going to buy a software that's going to give you a headache.
Yeah.
So part of this process is sustainably understanding as an organization how to identify problems, how to identify processes, and how to look for technology that solves the majority of that gap. And then asking those technology people truly hard questions, and then doing pilots and small implementations. And I don't want software given away for free because it is not easy. So you have to pay for those pilots, because also if I give you it for free, you don't have skin in the game. But piloting, small groups, small projects, small teams, iterations, be ready when you come out onto that pilot, something's not going to go right? Change, adapt, overcome. We talked about that earlier. This gives you an opportunity to put it on a small project, find the problem, and adjust to it and be ready. And in some cases, like if you're talking about estimating, Gavin, you're going to have to do duplicate work.
Yeah.
Right? Because estimating is so critical to what we do. I can't just take a risk. So I've done this at a company. I have one guy doing the old way and one person doing a new way. And at the end, we look at what we got. Then we make sure it works. And when it doesn't, because it doesn't, we go back and we look, oh, we've got assemblies wrong over here. Or our Excel spreadsheet that we were using, we didn't realize had this, like it was pulling from here. So let's adjust this. Let's fix it. And then get ready for full scale rollout and training, right? People in our industry are great at what they do. They're great builders, but asking them to do technology is like asking a great chef, can you now farm?
100%.
No, you can't farm.
100%.
Bring in implementation people. The bigger companies, they have partners. They have groups of consulting companies that specialize in this and doing it for you. Pay them. Why? Because you pay them now and then they go away and they're not on your books. If you go hire people and they do it, then they're just going to continually want to do it.
Yeah.
Right. But I also say have a couple core people who understand your business, because they need to understand where you want to drive the ship and how to work with all the tools and the teams and the people out there in the world to continue to succeed from a business perspective.
Love it. I absolutely love it. I think we've hit a lot of the key points here, Jeff. I want to throw some curved balls at you now.
Let's go.
That's what we do, and you're expecting it anyway, so I wouldn't want to disappoint you. Okay, knowing what you know now, what would you do different?
Oh, knowing what I know now, what would I do different? Besides invest in NVIDIA, I think I would have learned more about and spent more time learning how to build things physically. I think until I got to this world 10 years ago, I thought it was okay that, they condemn my Lego set. And I didn't have an appreciation for the people that do this work and really make our critical infrastructure so available. And I would have leaned into that sooner. I'd also have a lot more grace and a lot less bravado and understand now where I'm at of an empathy for being wrong and a comfortability
Of being vulnerable.
being vulnerable, but also being the dumbest person in the room. I now strive to be the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah.
Because if you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room.
Yeah. It's a true saying.
And surrounding yourself with great people.
Yeah.
And that differ from you. I would also be more open to technology, people who are anti-technology, people who are anti-change, people who have different perspectives. Because what I've learned is if you can lean in and create trust and learn from them, then help them and help you make a change that's better, it grows faster.
Yeah.
And I wish I had learned that sooner in my career, because I think I would have been more successful.
I think it's a maturity thing. Personally speaking, I think it's a maturity thing. I think we all get to a stage where we go, the other version of me was a trailblazer, but what was I actually trailblazing? Another podcast for another day. Favorite car?
Favorite car? Ooh, so I have to go back. See, mine will be an old car because it means so much to me. My dad was a Volkswagen Beetle guy. And my first car was a 1974 Volkswagen Beetle with a rebuilt standard Porsche engine in the back of it. And I still love everything VW Beetle and the buses. So to me, it's a VW Beetle because, man, I could do some things with that it just brings me back to my youth. My dad listening to music. He would blast the music in the car as we drove. So 1974 Volkswagen Beetle.
Was it a flat top or was it a hard top?
Hard top. Yeah, hard top. He wouldn't do the flat tops.
Yeah, they just didn't look. They just didn't fit. It just didn't look right, did it?
Nope.
We know that you do Ironman. So is there a point of interest that people wouldn't really know about you or wouldn't put a finger on that and say, I didn't know Jeff was that person? Something of interest about you that not many people would know.
So everybody would know me as an extrovert. I do get my energy. Yeah, right. I do get my energy from being around people and being on stage and being comfortable. But I think what they wouldn't understand or might not understand is I live here in the mountains because my cup gets refilled when I'm in nature and there's no one else around. And I can see the animals and experience sort of the freedom and kind of the rawness of it. It really regenerates me. And so I go from city living and packed houses to off into nature by myself. And it's where I come up with my ideas.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Tell us about the future then, just quick before we finish up the show, Jeff. The future for yourself, your business, the podcast, and where people can reach out to you and find you.
That's awesome. So check me out at thecontechcrew.com. We've been around for a really long time and we hope to continue to be around and really providing value for the industry. I'm just looking forward to continuing to help construction and the AEC industry take its place as such a vital, not only creator, but I mean, think about it. We're huge when it comes to the economy, and we're a huge opportunity for change in carbon and material selection and innovation. And so we should be the place that the future kids want to come to work. So for me, looking into how we advertise and become an industry that's better suited for that is huge to me, because I think it's critical to where we go forward. And I'm also super optimistic. I don't think, and this will be, we've done 45 minutes and I dare not say it, but I'm going to. This AI revolution that you're seeing, it is real. It is not completely ready. AI is not a strategy. It is a tool, but it will be a critically important tool to the future of what we do in construction.
100%.
Because as AI builds and machines and robotics build, they will come together and they will start to help us become more of a manufacturer. We will never manufacture a building in like a plant, but we will manufacture floor by floor, brick by brick, in a way that's repeatable and fast, using robotics and automation to help us to stay safer. And that is coming. And so I hope to let these powerful, there's so many small businesses out there, there's so many medium businesses out there, that if you don't embrace the change, all of that wealth, all of that you've built is going to slowly erode away. And if you want to pass it on to your next generation, like so many construction people do, you've got to start moving forward.
I agree.
And check me out on LinkedIn. But my final thing is, you don't have to run to get to the end, because you're never going to get there. But you do, if I helped you do anything, take a step forward. Start asking the questions. Take a step forward every day. Understand that some days it's going to feel like 3 steps back, but that's okay. Keep taking those steps forward. The change that you inspire will be the change that you reap. So to me, that's the future. Check me out on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. The ConTechCrew.com, and Gavin, man, thank you.
Jeff Sample, what a great show. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for coming on as a guest with us. And I'm sure people will reach out to you on LinkedIn as Jeff Sample, obviously, and we'll put some stuff in the show notes so they can contact you directly. You've been an absolute legend, and we'd love to have you back on the podcast in the future. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Gavin.
Thank you.
Hello, Gaffers. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. We love every one of the guests that we have, but in order to bring on more great guests, we'd love to build the channel with you. So hit the subscribe, hit the like button, and let's create a really great community where we bring in better and better guests for you to deliver great content and great pieces of information that you can take back into your business.